All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Okay. So got the chat working. Assume everything else is working. Cool. Let me know, guys, if you can hear me all right. I might feel a little bit, I might sound a little bit nasal today. Not feeling 100%. But we'll see. We'll see how we go. All right. Cool. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Cool. Everything is good to go. All right. Welcome everyone to the stream. So today we are gonna continue working on this character. This is something that we did last week, and it's meant to be kind of like a character. Apparently, I'm not entirely sure, but a few of the ZBrush Live streamers have been doing pumpkins as well. I wasn't aware of that, but yeah, I guess we just continue with the whole thing. What I want to do is this sort of like look and feel of a character that could fit within the world of the Nightmare Before Christmas type of thing, Tim Burton couple, yeah, that's that sort of style. So I'm gonna give this guy a skinny body, probably around the same style as this little twig, this thing that grows on his head. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. We're gonna polish and detail this a little bit more, and also add the body, but it's gonna be pretty thin. So it's gonna be a tall guy. Yeah, we'll see how we go. How's everyone going? David, thanks. Hey, saludos from desde México. Greetings from New Zealand. Hey, Javin, how you doing? Awesome. All right, cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and start with that. Hopefully I can show you a couple of interesting stuff during the process of building the body. And of course, as always, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer them as I go. And you know, if it is related to what I'm doing, you know, it makes the whole thing a little bit easier, you know, to cover that while I'm actually showing it. But if it's not, I'm also happy to try to cover them while I'm doing something different. Oh, by the way, I have a pretty cool announcement today, but I'll do it in a little bit. Alrighty, so I think for the body, what I'm going to do is go ahead and start with a ZSphere. That's probably one of the easiest way. Another way that you can do it is just using the Sculpting Pro with the snake hook brush, but I want to be able to lock in some of the proportions faster, so I reckon in this case the easiest one would be a ZSphere. So I just appended a ZSphere to solo mode. Alright, I'm gonna make sure I have symmetry enabled, and I'm gonna move this down. So the thing with ZSpheres is that if you want to do a body based on the ZSpheres, because they work in a kind of like a hierarchy, yeah, with hierarchy basically, these wouldn't be the neck. Basically, you have to start, or you don't have to, but I would recommend, if you're gonna do a body, I would recommend to start from the hips. And because again, it works kind of like in a hierarchy with hierarchy, anything that you do on top of that initial ZSphere is gonna move independently from anything that you do underneath, basically. New Mexico. Fair enough. Sorry. Awesome. Alrighty, so this is gonna be the hips. I'm gonna try to make like a very long and thin torso. And this is what I love. What I love ZSpheres for this type of thing, to explore some of the proportions a little bit faster. So this one is not necessarily the hips. It's kind of like the belly. You'll see what I mean in a second. This one would be the hips, roughly. and I'm basically just clicking with the draw tool, just clicking and dragging. Obviously, the longer that you drag, the bigger, or yeah, the larger the size of the Z-sphere. But you see how easy it is to just set up something like that. And of course, we're gonna tweak that later. But essentially, what this is the one that I have highlighted. The red one would be the belly, or the equivalent to it. The one here below it, right below it, would be the hips. These two would be the beginning of the legs. This one would be the torso, or the beginning of the chest, basically. And these two would be the shoulders. So now I can take a couple more, click and drag, and this will be the wrist, and this one will be the ankle. And let's do one for the neck here. And let's go ahead and do another one. All right, so now we can take the move tool, and I said this one were gonna be the wrist, but we can just push this one like so, and this one same way. So it looks like a stickman figure. I know this doesn't look great, but we are going to tweak it once we have a couple more Z-spheres. So I just want to get a little bit of the proportions on this character, just to show you that this is roughly this is the intention of having a very thin and long creature. Let's work on the neck, and I'm going to click on the scale tool here, and I'm going to scale the Z-spheres. So, and the reason I start with this sort of like stickman figure type of thing is because, as you see, if I scale down or up the shoulders, for example, I can affect this entire the entire connection, basically. If I have more within them, then I'll have to do it one by one. All right, let's go ahead and put the shoulders down a bit and away. And let's work a little bit on the pose. Not that this is a pose, but something that is more comfortable for sculpting, at least. And I reckon we can do the hands separately, and I'll show you another cool way to do that. All right, now let's go ahead and add the elbows and the knees just by using the draw tool to add new Z-spheres. And now we can give it a bit more of a body, or something that looks more natural than that stickman figure thing that I did. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and add a couple more just here in between, so that I can tweak the scale and the position of it. So I'm gonna use the scale to scale this down. Maybe increase the shoulders a tiny bit. Okay, so now that I have this, let's go ahead and select this material. In fact, let me well, not gonna work right now on the face, so just leave it like that. The reason I mentioned before that I like to set the root of the Z-sphere chain to be around here, the belly, is because it works in a kind of like hierarchy type of thing, or in a hierarchical way. So if I go ahead and select the rotate tool, which allows you to obviously rotate the Z-spheres, if I want to rotate the entire, let's say, spine, let's say forward, right? If I do this, I can make this type of pose, or rotate the body in a way, right? And that is because the root is right here. So I can do the same thing with the legs. right, independently from the top of the body. If I started with the root at the top in the neck, anything that I do is going to affect the rest of the chain. So that's why I start with that ZSphere right there. That's the reason, so that I can work or tweak things independently, like the torso or the upper body from the legs. Okay, I think this would work as a starting point. Maybe just gonna make the legs a little bit longer. All right, something like that. And maybe the body, sorry, the neck should be a little bit thicker here at the top. All right, so now the way that you convert this into a usable mesh that we can actually work and start tweaking and adjusting is super simple. We can go to the adaptive skin. There are a few settings though, in case you're not familiar with the adaptive skin. You can just click adaptive skin and it will create a mesh that you can work on. But the easiest thing for me in this case, since I'm going to work on proportions, I want to keep the geometry very low. So if you click on preview, what you get is a Dynamesh object. Let me just turn off or change material actually. Right, so ZBrush is going to take the volume of the ZSpheres and it's going to adapt. That's why it's called an adaptive skin. So it's going to adapt around those ZSpheres or the volumes to create this mesh. So this is like a normal Dynamesh object. Obviously, it's just a preview, but in this case, like I said, I don't want to. I want to work on the proportions and have a bit more control of it. So instead of using Dynamesh, what I'll do is let's go ahead and set the Dynamesh resolution to 0. And if you set this to 0, we're basically telling ZBrush to use just the subdivision approach or just adapt around the volumes, but without Dynameshing the object. So if I preview this, you'll see we have a cleaner topology, which is what I'm after. And this density of 2 is basically the level of subdivision that ZBrush is going to make. So if I set this to 1, right, we get the most basic geometry in a way. So I think subdivision level of 2 will be fine, and then we just delete the rest. All right, so that preview works. What I'll do is I'm going to click on make adaptive skin, and that should have created another tool here. Again, it's just this is a workable mesh, so we can use the move brush and all of that to move things around. So what I'll do is copy that mesh, paste it in here. Oops. And I'm going to take the ZSphere and I'm going to drop it into the original just to keep it in this folder. All right, so now we have a mesh that we can work with and start tweaking. Let me see the chat. Yeah, that's right. ZSpheres are fantastic. Is there a way to change the root? Not a simple way that I can think of. If I want to change the root, what I would do is basically delete in between ZSpheres. It's better to start with a place that you want to. Hey Pablo, do you ever mess with any of the pre-made ZSphere animals in the lightbox at all? I use the mannequins mostly for practicing anatomy, but I haven't actually used those pre-made things for animals really. I suppose that if I were to do something that I needed to do something similar as a base, I might use them as a sketch. But to be honest, I really haven't had the need to do it. But they're pretty cool though. I'm gonna go ahead and delete lower so you can work with this a bit better. And all I want to do really is start tweaking the volumes. I'm gonna keep the body and everything else pretty simple. I just want to make sure that the volumes work. So this could be kind of like the rib cage of this guy, but the rest is super long. And this is using the move brush. I have AccuCurve enabled just because I don't know. I know some people don't like it, especially for tweaking volumes, but I find it really, I don't know. There's an element of randomness that I quite like about the AccuCurve. Not necessarily randomness. Maybe that's not the word. It just gives me the ability to control the position of the vertices a bit more. So it's kind of like the opposite of like a soft deformer or a soft manipulator, but because I'm just blocking and setting up the volumes, that's enough for me, and it works. So okay, this is the tricky part. Making sure that the proportions are not too crazy, or like, I mean, they could be crazy, but they have to work as a whole. All right, so that's just little tweaks with the move brush. Nothing fancy here. And I think for the most part, what we're gonna be doing today is pretty close to the process that we did for the head, or how we started the head. So a lot of sculpting, pushing and pulling polygons, what I'm doing right now. But hopefully in a bit I can show you some cool tips and tricks. All right. So that's a little bit better. I feel like the neck might be too long. Let's actually push everything up a bit. Yeah, I think it feels a little bit better. I'm gonna test a few proportions. So from this point, I can just, oops, maybe from here, I can change the pivot, and I can see maybe like a massive head with a tiny body. That doesn't work as well. Just try to balance the proportions a bit more. All right, I feel. Let me bring in my Epic pen so I can walk you through the thought process here in terms of the design. I feel like trying to manipulate them feels like different than this regular ZSpheres. Had a lot of issues trying to pose one of the in a sitting position without getting super wonky. Yeah, I haven't tried them, but the animals in those presets, or those presets animals, they are actually mannequins. So they're based in a ZSphere, but they have kind of like geometry as connections. So that might be part of the issue. So you have to sort of like know how to manipulate them. It shouldn't really give any issues, but just keep in mind, if it is, because they're mannequins, all you want to do is just set them up in a pose, or in a way that you can start, dynamesh it and start sculpting like in a more freely way, like purely sculptural. All right, so right now what I have is kind of like, this is the size of the head, let's say torso and legs, which is fair enough, but it's not. It doesn't make for a pretty, very interesting proportion. And I know that the arms look a little bit shorter, but I'm planning to add the fingers like that, so it's gonna be like this. So what I'm thinking is maybe push this up a little bit, so we still have pretty long legs, a shorter torso, and we complement here with the head, right? So these type of proportions for me work a little bit better, and it's more interesting, and is roughly sort of like aiming towards that sort of golden ratio, between proportions. So doing that, just pushing the hips up a little bit, that should help. And once we add the hands, it will feel a bit more, a bit better. Same thing with the, I'm not gonna make shoes or anything. Maybe some kind of like root type of thing. We'll see. So that's, I just want to show you that bit, or the reasoning behind why I would do this. And maybe we can exaggerate a few things now. I think the proportions work, but let's say this guy could have like a pretty prominent, like the shoulder blade, or the shoulder could be very pointy and have like a very prominent, like iliac crest here on the hips, like this bone here. So let's just go ahead and subdivide this a couple of times, and we can delete lower. This is not going to be the the final topology. It's a clean topology to start with, and I started with a low res mesh just to be able to manipulate it, the whole thing a little bit easier, but it's not going to be the final one by any means. I'm not sure if can be bothered doing the retopology later. It's just a concept, so might leave it just as a Dynamesh or something like that. But what I'll do is do this type of thing. So the shoulder will be pretty pointy, like let's say the connection between the shoulder plate. This acromion process would be very prominent in a way, and that creates, remember that I'm trying to set it up as something similar, or something that could live in that Nightmare Before Christmas type of world. So you have those, pointy areas and the swirly shapes as well. And the same thing goes for this area. So I can use the damp standard brush with the Alt key just to invert it. Okay, and I think we can add a few volumes, like using the inflate brush. Maybe the forearm is a bit more prominent, or it has like a bit more volume than the actual arm. Just a little bit. I wanna keep it very stylized. Same thing for the legs. So I'm just pressing very lightly to add a little bit of volume. Not too much. Here for the knee. All right. So I think that works as a base for the body. You can always exaggerate it a little bit more just by pulling and pushing things, but as I said, I think this, you know what, maybe let's exaggerate the rib cage. I want to try and see how this looks with a bit more volume. I don't know, what do you guys think? I think with these, I think it's losing a little bit of the character. We're gonna keep it simple. All right. How do you design characters? Does it come to you naturally, or there is some theory behind that anyone can learn? It's, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a hard question. I mean, I don't think that things just come to me or to anyone really. I think it's a combination of practice, a bit of dedication, obviously, studying things, and I mean, I think anyone can learn it. Basically, there's no magic formula. I mean, I don't think you're born basically with it. You can grow into being a great artist. I'm 100% convinced of that. So it's not like if you feel like you cannot do something right now, that's it. It's like, oh, I wasn't born with the gift or whatever. I don't believe in that. I do believe that there are people that have more aptitude for certain things, so I mean, you can learn faster, or the way that you learn is a little bit faster, yeah. But anything can be learned. So for me, it's just a combination of, to answer the question, it's a combination of that is practice. I would say the power of observation, like developing that as a tool as an artist. That's one of the biggest things for me. So being able to learn from what you see, basically, and then being able to apply it is the next thing. So using references, just to copy from references, it builds kind of like a muscle memory, I believe. Let me just, oops. I'm gonna go ahead and append a sphere to work on the hands, and we can keep talking about that because I think it's an interesting topic. So yeah, with designing characters, it's not something that necessarily comes natural to me, or it kind of does now, just because I've been doing it for years. So when I say it comes naturally, I mean I have a bigger, or like a large library of visual references in my head that I know could work in terms of proportions, or ideas, or how to mix things up. But a lot of the things that I do are just experimenting. So it's not like I have a clear thing in my head right now, or exactly where I'm going. I allow the design to evolve, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's a good question. Have you ever yelled at any of your students? Not really. I don't know exactly what that question is, as in for doing something. I don't know. Yeah, no. I don't yell at my students. The thing is, my students, I mean, we're kind of like just colleagues or friends. Like the calling them students sometimes feels kind of like weird to me, because yeah, they might be in a different learning path, or a different position in their career than what I am right now. But I was at some point I was there as well, so it's just, I don't know. It's kind of like dealing with colleagues in a way, that that somehow look up to you, so you have that responsibility. It's not like, I don't see it kind of like in a hierarchical way, in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. But for me, it's more about, yeah, it's just kind of like if we were in a studio, basically, that's the relation that I have with them. It's like, yeah, I would potentially be, the art director in a way, for them, but it's just colleagues, and I wouldn't yell at my colleagues. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and append. Actually, let's use the insert brushes primitive. Insert cylinder. So I'm gonna use the cylinder to do the fingers. Here's a cool trick. It's not a trick, but it's something that you might have encountered as an issue, but it's not an issue, it's intentional. So if you click and drag with any insert brush, right, you basically determine the size. So I'm just determining the size of this insert brush. But without letting go of the click, if I go back in the opposite direction, I'm basically reducing or thinning out the inserted mesh without affecting the length. So in a way, when you click and drag, so this is the click and you drag here, that is determining the size overall, right? But with the same click, if you just go back without letting go of the click, that is maintaining the length. So the length is maintained, but then you are kind of like deflating it. So the radius, in a way, is what you're deflating. So let me do it again. So I'm going to determine the length, and now without letting go, now I'm setting up the thickness of it. So that's a cool thing that you can do. And I'm working on only one side, and then I'll just mirror it. Yeah, comics lighting. So yeah, I don't yell at them, but if there is something I learned from Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid back in the day, what was the phrase? Now I can't remember. It's something like there's no bad students, just bad teachers, or something like that. I think it's Miyagi's a Miyagi's quote. I don't know. All right, so I'm gonna take this first phalange of the finger. I'm gonna hold Control and click and drag. So I just duplicated that, and I'm just gonna scale it in this axis. So I maintain. I'm basically reducing the length of it. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. Hold Control and drag. Scale this down a bit. Rotate it. And this one right here, what I'll do is bring in the deformers and go to taper. Let's get a bit closer here. And I'm gonna taper this. It's a little bit crooked, but that's all right. What I can do is auto group, and that way I can just isolate this mask, bring in the gizmo, and then reposition this. Okay, just basically the same thing. All right, just a quick thing in terms of dealing with, you know, fingers and building a hand like that. In terms of the proportions, a very simple thing that you can do is just set it as 4:3:2. So this is 4 times, or not 4 times, but 3 times, sorry, 2:3:4 in a way. So this one would be half of this one. Sorry, this one would be half of that one, and then this one is kind of like in between. That's just one way to do it, just to get some proportions working. Let me reposition this first. Yeah, I think that works. I'm gonna hold Control and rotate scale like so. And I'm gonna give this guy 3 fingers. Hold Control, or yeah, and a thumb. And for the thumb, what I'll do is I'm gonna only duplicate, hang on, auto group all of that, because they're all actually different pieces. Right, and I'm gonna take just these ones, center the pivot, and manually place it kind of like at the top of this. So I'm just holding Alt to set that pivot, hold Control, duplicate, maybe scale it in this axis and then making it a bit thicker. All right, and I have the move topological selected, and because these are like separate pieces, this is why I can go ahead and move these like so a little bit easier. All right, I think I'm going to move this away a little bit. And this is why at this point I like to keep things separate so that I can select things and in a way not pose like a final pose, but like a working pose, I guess. Right. So there's the hand. It's still pretty tiny. So what I'll do is I'll take the move brush, and with a large brush I'm just gonna pull it like this, just to increase the length of those fingers a bit more. And I think I'm gonna reduce the width as well. All right, and then we can bring in the gizmo, put it around the wrist here, and we can judge the whole thing a little bit better and maybe just scale things up. Cool, yeah, I think that works. Let's go ahead and let's see. Let's work on this hand. There are many ways that you can go about it. Again, I'll just show you a couple of cool things that you can do at this point, because one of the kind of like issues, or not issues, but yeah, well, let's call it an issue. Let's say that you want to work with Dynamesh, right? To just refine this and merge all of these things together. So if I click on Dynamesh, in this case works just fine. But if you have something that is very close to each other, like if your fingers are like this close and you Dynamesh, you're gonna end up with this web or webbage between the fingers. So if I undo that, one way to, you know, fix that issue or work around that issue before you do retopology is with the Sculptors Pro. So I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. Let me see the chat. Do I do review like Thomas? Not sure which ones you're referring to. You mean like reviewing portfolios online and that sort of thing? I don't. If that's the question, I don't really have much time aside from what I do here on ZBrush Live. I do reviews and student feedback and all of that in the course, which actually it looks like a good opportunity for give the announcement. So the Extra Mile is opening next week. Just want to give you guys some first first tips basically, so you guys are aware of it. So in case you don't know, the Extra Mile is the course that I have online, and that's what I'm sort of like referring to in terms of my students and all of that. That is opening for enrollment next week. I'm not entirely sure what day next week, but maybe over the weekend. I'll try to set it up on the weekend. But yeah, I'm opening for like about 5 days, and then it's gonna be closed. And this is the last time that the price is gonna be the same thing, because it's been over like a year, and I've been just adding content and live lessons and all of that. So the more time that is required for me to continue working on the course and keep maintain it, yeah, I'll have to bump up the price basically. So this is the last time, the last opportunity to join at the current price. And if you see this character that I have just below the hand, this guy here, this is a new character that I added to the universe of the Extra Mile course, and it's a demo that I did for the students for 7 new lessons for rendering. So basically I did a big update with 7 new lessons on rendering, and I'm covering a few renders like Blender Eve, Blender Cycles, Maverick Render, which is fantastic, and Adobe Dimension. So those are part of the new update, which once you get into the course, all of those type of updates are free. So I just wanted to let you guys know that with a bit more time that is going to be open, I'll let you guys know again next week. But yep, so if you're part of the email list, of course you'll get the notifications and all that info and everything else. But yep, all right, that was my little plug, just so that you know that is happening next week. I forgot how to put brush below sculpting window. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You mean in the interface? Hi, there's any course that teaches retopology that I recommend? No, not something that I can think of as in just for retopology. I can't think of retopology to me, or at least, yeah, it's something that you might have to do to to polish a model, but depending on what you're doing really. So it's hard to think of like a course that is dedicated to retopology. I do teach retopology, and there is a few lessons in the course in the Extra Mile that is dedicated to retopology, but it's just a step of the process. I don't think there is a course about it. You might find tutorials online, I'm not sure. Is there any limit of how many people can enroll in the Extra Mile? There is not an exact number, and I know that sounds weird, but the whole course is a little bit different from things that you might have seen online. So it's not like yeah, basically there might be a limit. There will be a limit. The lessons are pre-recorded. Then there are also live feedback and that sort of thing, but that's another side of the course. The thing is, when I permanently have it closed, but when I open it, I try to dedicate some time to the new students and get them up to speed and all of that. So that's why I don't leave it open permanently, because if I keep just having students turning up, they won't have the same experience as all the ones that have joined before. So that's why I keep it closed and open when I can, provide that kind of like feedback and that kind of support. Hey Big Mac, how you doing? Just put him in below the window interface. So just to put things in the interface, you need to go to Preference, Config, Enable Customize, and that allows you to drag and drop things. You can hold the Alt and Control key and move things around. But let's just do some stuff. So with the hand, what I was saying is that if you Dynamesh, you might encounter that issue that I showed you. You can also increase the Dynamesh resolution. So if I Dynamesh this with low obviously that's what we are going to end up with. So if you find this issue, the quick solution is just to increase the Dynamesh resolution. So now this is a Dynamesh object, and you can just work with that. Alternatively, if I go back, which is what I wanted to show you, you can use the Sculptris Pro, and that's a pretty decent alternative. But right now the thing is, let's say, if I hide some of this, you'll see this is actually geometry intersecting with each other, which is why I can use the move topological, because they're not connected, right? So there's no continuity in the topology between these different pieces that make up the hand. So one thing I can do is bring in the gizmo, go into this gear icon, and there is the forma or a modifier. I always lose them. Yeah, remesh by union. So remesh by union is gonna run kind of like a Boolean operation to basically Boolean everything. So you see nothing, you don't have controls or anything. It's just, it actually does that operation, and then you can just click on accept. And that basically means that if I go in now and check, it is a watertight model. So ZBrush went ahead and ran kind of like a Boolean operation to connect all of these pieces. So if I smooth all of this, it's just a single piece, right? So I can do that. Obviously, because of the Boolean operation, you have some triangles. I don't mind them at the moment when you smooth. But yeah, so you have now, see this type of thing, that is because of the connection of points in this area. But that's when I would bring in the Sculptris Pro, right? Because Sculptris Pro allows you to work based on the resolution of your brush. So let's turn this on, and let's go ahead and remove the fill, right? So with the Sculptris Pro, I can just go ahead and work on this. Whoops, I have the clay brush, so smooth brush, sorry. I can do these type of things if I want to smooth things out, right? And sculpt the same way, right? With the clay brush, I can do this. And obviously, I'm only adding polygons in this area with the size that I need, right? I'm not gonna use that right now, because I want to use the move brush with AccuCurve just to quickly adjust some of these shapes. And I'm gonna try to move a little bit faster here, because I did want to get to detail or polish a little bit of the head. Okay, I'm just pulling kind of like the joints just to exaggerate them a little bit. One thing we can do just to give this a bit more of an interesting shape is with the mask brush. In fact, let's divide that, or not divide, let's see. I guess at this point we could potentially just do a zero measure. So let's just try that. So I'm gonna do a zero measure with adaptive on. And that's a pretty decent topology. I'm gonna divide this a couple more times. I'm just gonna exaggerate some of the bone or the bony areas. So this is a cheap but effective trick. In some cases, I mean, depending on what you want to do. So I'm just painting a mask basically, that's all I'm doing. And blurring it a little bit. And then I'm just going to invert that mask, inflate, and that's it. And then we can just work with the clay brush and the smooth brush just to integrate this a bit more. But roughly that was the idea. All right. It's not too bad. I want to keep it stylized. I tend to just begin detailing, or add too much details, too many details. Okay, so the other thing we can do is just flatten this a little bit more for the nails. Maybe we can use a similar technique. So with the masking brush, I'm just going to mask these areas. Actually, I think it's fine. Let's just flatten with the H polish. I don't want to do it. I don't want to exaggerate it too much, or I don't want to do extreme flattening. All right, something like that. All right, it's still super sketchy, but you start to get an idea what this is going to be. And to be fair, this is gonna change, I hope. I want to do the body kind of like as if it is grown from the ground, so it's similar to the twig on top of the head, really. Anyway, so that's the hand. I'm just gonna mirror and weld. Whoops, have multiple subdivision levels, no problem. Let's delete that. And let's do another zero measure. Let's see how much a quick zero measure will polish all of that sketch. Hey, good evening. Hey, happy extruder, Pablo. Oh, no worries, man. Glad you like the ZBrush guides. No worries. Okay, so that's actually not too bad. Let's see. Yeah, that cleaned it up a little bit. So I'm happy with that. Let's mirror and weld. So now we have a more real reference of that hand. We can bring in the move brush and do any necessary adjustments to, the proportions a bit more. I think the thumb is a little bit tiny. It was kind of like in an uncomfortable position. All right. So that's working a little bit better. We'll still have to combine it maybe with the body, although it might be interesting to do something, like I said. Let's take this body. Let's use the inflate brush. And I'm just gonna do that. And I'm gonna use the move brush with AccuCurve to do some kind of, not leaves, but how would you call this? I mean, they're kind of like the sleeves of the, if you can say like that, the body would be the suit, but I don't know, this type of thing. I don't know how to call it, but I hope that you know what I mean. Almost like if the hand was the butt of the, yeah. I don't know. I think that looks a lot better. We could do the same thing for the feet. Let's just complete the body quickly, and then we move on to the rest. So let's go ahead and append. Oh no, what did I do? Delete. Let's do a quick save as well. Let me check. Are you timing the release of your mushroom character course with the temp opening enrollment? For example, you release the course, people like it, and to the extra mile, otherwise won't be open. For example, you release the course, people like it, and want to sign up to the extra mile. No, I'm not sure if I get what you. They're separate things, right? They're completely different. One is more advanced. The extra mile is more advanced. It's more in depth. It's way bigger course. Well, not way bigger, but it's a bigger course. The Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, which is the one that you're talking about, the one with the mushroom head, is for absolute beginners. So it's targeting different people, or trying to, it's obviously created to help different people that are at different, different stages, I guess, of the learning process. So the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course would be aimed for beginners. It's almost the other way around. So if you start with ZBrush and then you get very comfortable, and that's the objective of the course, that by the end of it you can just run with ZBrush and do whatever you want. But it's basically focusing on ZBrush, just on ZBrush and the entire system. That's why it's such a long, like it's taken me so long to build it. So to make sure that whatever I teach is not just like, oh yeah, click here, click here, click here, and then you'll get this, right? Which is not really covering the course of, or the core of the software and what it can do as a tool. So the idea would be you do the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, and if you feel that you want to go to the next level, push your skills to the next level, and incorporate other things in the pipeline like Substance Painter or Keyshot or Maverick, like that sort of thing, then that's when you move into the extra mile. So not the other way around, if that makes sense. But I'm not necessarily timing it in any particular way. It's just I'm very close to finish the final aspects of it. In the meantime, the extra mile is opening And then I hope that next week will be the extra mile. I hope that mid-November or something like that, I will be able to release the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course. So if you're thinking more of if you're more of a beginners and you want to focus on ZBrush, I would recommend that over the extra mile, obviously. The sepal bottom part of the flowers, for instance. Fair enough. That's what I was trying to do. Thank you. Diego, no, también hablo español. Pero voy a tratar de hacer algunos streams en español en ZBrush Live, pero todavía no estoy seguro cuándo. La verdad, la mayoría de la gente que me sigue habla en inglés, pero sé que también hay gente que habla español, así que pronto haré eso también. Yeah. How do you learn the anatomy? Also the silhouette for the proportions. That's part of what I was talking about earlier today about the developing a critical eye or being able to observe and actually retain that knowledge. Is not just about let's look at something for a while and then that's it. It's just it's about retaining that knowledge and applying that knowledge. So, but it's important to develop that eye, that critical eye, that power of observation. And for anatomy, it's just practice. It's like a never-ending project for me. So it's not that I learned anatomy. I'm still learning it. It's never-ending. Hey Berg, how you doing, man? Love your last sort of like toy type of thing that you did in the extra mile. So Berkey Cut, I always ask you if I'm pronouncing it right, but anyway, he's an extra miler, and he's been doing some amazing work in the extra mile. Yeah, feel free to ask in Spanish or in English. I might be able to even understand a bit of Portuguese, but I will reply in English so that it's for everyone, at least more inclusive. Anyway, so let's go ahead and append a Z-sphere. Not a Z-sphere. What did I say? Yeah, a sphere. And I'm going to take this down and create another, what was the name? Another sepal for the bottom of that part of that flower. But this one is going to be different. I think I don't know, what can we do here? I think it would be something like the character Groot, that it has like a, yeah. Sometimes I forget the names, but once I do it, you guys understand hopefully what I'm trying to do. So I'm gonna take the former, the flatten. I'm gonna push that up just to get that initial flatness of it. Then I'm gonna switch to taper. I'm gonna do something like that. I could have just started with a cone, but whatevs. Doing this like that. All right. Obviously, this is not great. A couple of stumps, but this is where I can start. Well, let's do a bit of tweaking very quickly. And I'm not particularly interested in keep, or not interested, but like I don't mind if I break that flatness. We can just do it afterwards again. I just want to get an interesting silhouette, something that actually works. Oh, another thing that don't remember who asked. I think Joy asked about the developing designs and all of that. It's not just about obviously proportions and making it look cool, but and this is something that I found with time. When I started, I was like, oh no, let's make this because it's gonna look cool or whatever. But as I developed my craft in a way, if you can call it like that, an important thing for me now is to ensure that the design is also functional. So not just cool, but that it could exist. And it doesn't mean that it has to exist in the real world. So if it is a fantasy world and things work differently with magic or whatever in a fantasy world, is trying to adhere to those physics of that world in a way. So in this case, the guy still has to walk. So I want to make sure that this design of this piece can hold him, this big head, and he's not gonna fall forward and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm gonna bring in the snake hook brush with Sculptris Pro, and from the bottom, just gonna do this. I'm not sure if this is gonna look good, but that's basically what I was trying to do. I don't think this looks good. All right, let's keep at it. That's another thing, right? when when you start working on something, maybe your first try is just not gonna be great, like I just did there. But sometimes, keep working on something might pay off. It might actually turn into something cool. So let's try to develop this idea a bit more. Maybe it just needs some thickness here at the top. And I'm just using the inflate brush. I don't think it looks like a root. It looks like a crooked chicken leg. I think this is an example of a bad in between. It's neither a stump, and it's not a I'm not liking it. So I'm just gonna delete this. I think that works a bit better. I think it's just the length of these things what makes it look weird. And maybe the size as well. I think we can get away with something a bit smaller. Yeah, I reckon something like that. I'm still not convinced about this. We'll see how we go. You know what? I think we can do like a reverse version of this. Yeah, let's do that. This one was a failed attempt. Let's append a ZSphere again, or a sphere. Keep calling it ZSpheres, but they're just spheres. So let's do more like a boot, like a shoe. I'm gonna use the flatten deformer again just to get that initial level there. And we can use the move brush. Let's just dynamesh that as well. And let's work on something a lot more stylized than what I was doing. Something very narrow, like a very thin boot, as if the character has a very thin shoe. Yes, I think something like that might be cool. Let's see how everything is working with this. Yeah, maybe not that long. All right. I feel somehow this works a little bit better with this character. It's like more of a, it gives him more like a humanoid type of feel to it. And then we can use the inflate brush. Like I said, it's kind of like a hang on, just got rid of Sculptors Pro. Like a reverse version of that. What was it? Sepal type of thing. So just adding a bit of volume. Well, that was maybe too much, but all right. So something like that. I'll check the chat in a second. I see some maybe questions there. Just want to block this thing quickly, and then I can mirror and weld it, and then we can go into some details and hopefully show you something different, something cool. We still have plenty of time, I think, for what I wanted to do anyway. I'm gonna go ahead and move all of that down a bit. Right, this is a Dynamesh object, remember, so we can do these type of things and redynamesh with no problem, maybe with a slightly larger resolution, so we don't lose as much definition here in these flicks. Yeah, I think that is working a lot better than the previous one. And it could be kind of like a bag or something, I don't know. We'll see. Really, these ones are a little bit thicker. But again, I think it works. All right, so I'm going to take the clay brush and I'm just going to emphasize this a bit more. Hang on. More resolution. I'm going to enable the backface masking so that I can flatten this a bit more without affecting the other side, because this is becoming thinner as I push this in. Same thing from this side maybe. And we can start adding some like an indication of what the design of this boot would be, to make it more like make it fit within the style and what we're trying to do, which is kind of like a veggie, I don't know. Yeah, some more like a natural organic shape. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do a mirror and weld, but without local symmetry. There we go. Yeah, that's not too bad. I think it's working fine. We might have to do something more interesting here for the top. We'll see. Let me check the chat. How long would it take someone to finish the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course? So I did a test with my partner because she, yeah, basically if you're going to do the whole thing as in like a Netflix series in a way, you could finish it in 2 months. Like if you do one episode a day, right? That's almost and that's obviously working or like doing one every day during the week without weekends, maybe 4 days a week or something like that. So you could finish in 2 months, roughly 2.5 months. But that is taking into account that you watch the lesson and you practice and you do, you follow the steps to bringing your creation to the same level or at the same point of that lesson. Again, it's slightly different from other courses that you might have online. There's a bit more of a counterintuitive approach. So just to give you an idea of what the course methodology is, one of the first things that I will teach, which is super counterintuitive, I know, is how to customize your UI. And this is something that I always say, right? Like customizing UI, it has to be something that is very personal, and it's something that I think is better that you do after you have more practice with the software. And after you have done a lot of things with the software, you start to figure out, okay, let's move this thing here and there. So it's very counterintuitive in that sense, because one of the first things that you learn is to customize it. But there is a reason behind it. But anyway, I won't get into that. The whole idea is that you could do, to answer your question, 2 months and a half should be plenty for, if you do one lesson and you have time to practice. If not, it will be a little bit longer, but there's no time limit. So in that sense, is very similar to the to the extra mile. It's self-paced, so you can just do it at your own time. There is a supportive private community that, some of the extra milers, actually, some of the students that I have in the extra mile that, are, flying at the moment with the stuff that they're creating, they have actually volunteer as well to help in the community of the Ultimate ZBrush Guide. So you can ask questions, and some other people that have already gone through that process could help help you figure out things. I'm not gonna lie, so I put the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course. Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. Some videos, your interface had custom head on the right corner. Oh yeah. That's a cam view. So you're referring to this thing, right? I haven't actually updated because I haven't transferred the things that I had in the previous version of ZBrush, but yeah, I know which one you mean. If you want to do whatever you want to do in here, let's say if I want to have, let's hide the body and all of that. Let's do a quick save. It's just a matter of having something on the screen, like in this case, this guy. So that's what I did with the head. I set up the head and the poly paint and everything that I wanted to see in that view, and then you go to Preferences, Cam View, and then you click on Make Cam View, and so we're just gonna take a series of pictures from different angles, and there we go. So now I have a reference of this thing. If you want to have this transparent as a transparent background, what you can do is set the background to black, and let's do the same thing. ZBrush is going to interpret anything that is dark or like pure black as transparent anyway. So now there is a transparent, so there's transparent background basically. And that's it. You can move around by clicking on that head. All right, I think let's see. You having a good mood? Thanks, man. Yeah, having a Tuesday actually. I'm in the future. Are you working on a graphic tablet? Yes, I'm working on a Wacom Cintiq. I should just write down the name. I just always forget. Wacom Cintiq 24 Pro Touch, I think it's called. So 24-inch. It is touchscreen and it's Wacom and it's a Cintiq. So if you're Googling that type of thing, I'm sure it will come up. All right. So I think I'm gonna do the same simple thing here for the neck, but I'm gonna exaggerate it, and maybe I can take this as an opportunity to show you something cool with the new dynamics. So let's go ahead and append a sphere, and this sphere is going to be a dummy file that I'm gonna try to fit within the the same volumes of the head roughly. It doesn't have to be. Just something like that will be fine. Maybe even, yeah, something like that. The only reason I'm trying to fit it within the head is just so that when I create these, the sepal or the petals in a way, the size roughly would match the head, or like the size of the head, as if they were like actually things. And this is when I was talking about the functionality of the design and making it feel within the boundaries of this universe that you're trying to create with whatever character. Try to make it look like it's realistic, or that it could fit within that universe. So what I'm trying to do right now is those petals that I'm going to create, this sphere is going to be the base of it. So if I make it something, actually it should be a bit bigger, but if I make something that covers the head, it feels like, it's something that could wrap around the head in a way, although that's probably not how pumpkins grow anyway. All right. Cool. So I'm just gonna use this as an example of how to build these pieces, and I'm just gonna take advantage of the curvature of this sphere. So I'm gonna go into solo mode, and I'm gonna do one, and then I'm just going to probably duplicate it. Let's see. Yeah, I reckon this is a good chance as well to move away from symmetry. So I'm going to enable fill. I'm going to use the mask lasso, and I'm going to mask an area like so. Right? And I'm going to invert the mask, and I'm going to clean up this mask. All right, let's invert it. So basically what I have is just a simple mask of a petal in a way. Now I have this macro that automatically creates an edge, and it splits everything. So it does a few steps, and it basically splits whatever I mask, it splits it into a new subtool. But I'll show you, step by step, kind of like what I would do. Now that I have the mask, I can just Control W that, and that will generate these polygroups. Then we can bring in something like the polish by groups, which should be for you guys on the deformation palette. So polish by groups, I'll just push that like so, and you see ZBrush looks at the difference between the different polygroups, or the IDs or colors, and before we had like a very jagged set of edges, and it's just going to push those closer. So it basically pushes those vertices closer to each other and creates a very clean, what it looks like a very clean loop. But if you actually go ahead and smooth these out, you just go back, the normal smooth, you just go back to what you had. So yeah, just a simple polish by groups to simplify that edge. So again, all of that I'm doing manually is all within this custom clean mask edge split. So you can build it if you want, build the same thing. So now that I have that, I'm going to enable double. I can hide, hide the rest of these polygroups, or the other polygroup. I can delete that. Right, so a few steps, and that's why I created a macro, because it just simplified the whole thing. And that's it. So you end up with this piece on its own, right? Now that I have this piece, what I'll like to do probably is just do a quick zero measure. It's a pretty simple piece, so shouldn't take that long. Let's actually do it with half the polygons. I mean, it's not bad, but I reckon I could do something better using the legacy. Let's try that. Yeah, so the legacy, sometimes for organic stuff, the legacy button will give you a better result. And the legacy is just purely a, is the previous algorithm before it was updated to ZBrush 3.0 or something. All right. So now that I have this, that is pretty simple, I'm gonna bring in the gizmo, center that kind of like in this area, and I'm just gonna rotate this thing around and try to fit it actually within, like around the neck. Right? And I feel like it could actually be smaller than that. Now looking at it. Yeah, something like that. Let's go ahead and hold Control and duplicate that. Maybe I'm gonna hide the body for the time being so that I can see where I'm placing these things. So I'm just holding Control and drag. I'm trying to vary things slightly with, with the scaling, but trying to make sure that everything, that they share the same center in a way. So yeah, thing like that, and then I'm gonna do one more here for the front, but this one is gonna be smaller. And I'm gonna clear the mask, and I'm gonna bring the rest up, push that one forward. Great, done. Right? But now we have that cool sort of like looking, I don't know, neck. But it's a relatively clean geometry. We can take advantage of some of the dynamics and also add some thickness. So we're gonna do that. Full things can be. How much would the ultimate ZBrush guide cost? That will come later. I haven't finished it. The reason I don't have an exact amount or a straight answer to give you is because I'm still looking into ways of deferring the payments in, like, 6 months or whatever, so that is more just trying to help like someone that might want to defer the payment into multiple months. So I'm trying to figure that out first, and that's why it's not ready yet. That's the final stretch of setting up the course. I'll let you know. Again, if you're part of the email list, you'll get all that information by email. Do you have any thoughts on Hue on Canvas 22 Plus? I'm going to get drawing tablet. I'll be honest, I haven't actually tried it. I'm super biased when it comes to tablets. I would say it's probably very good. Artists that actually use it, but again, I'm very biased to answer that. For me, Wacom, it's the best. I've tried a Huyun. It wasn't that one though, and it's fine. As a tablet, it's fine. I think what's the other one? Pen Pro Pen or something like that. Pen Pro or something like that. There's another one that is actually pretty good. Maybe one thing that I could recommend is to maybe try a smaller tablet, or actually go to a place that you can actually try them and see the difference. But that's what I'm saying. I'm a little bit biased because I've been using Wacom for a long time. All right, so let's go ahead and take this guy, and I'm gonna go to the dynamic subdivision. I'm gonna enable dynamic. Obviously, it gets softer, but that's all right. And I'm gonna enable thickness. So with thickness, with this slider, we can just give it a nice thickness to this area. And what I'll do, I'm gonna try a couple of things. So let's duplicate it, I'm going to hide one. So I'm going to try a couple of things with these two subtools. I'm going to hide the head. So I reckon let's create a folder now just to keep things organized. Call it head. And I'm going to put all the head elements in there so that I can just hide everything faster, like so. Right? And with that hidden, I'm going to go to the dynamics, and let's put that on the right so you can see what I'm doing. And obviously this is the new palette, or the recently added palette, which is awesome to have dynamics in ZBrush. And I'm going to go ahead and calculate with 0.5 in inflate. This is kind of like this inflate is the distance from, when I click recalculate right now, ZBrush is going to look at whatever is visible. That's why I hid the head, so there's no weird intersections. It's going to recalculate whatever volumes are in here. So obviously the body is going to be volume, right? And this inflate at 0.5 is going to look at that. Is kind of yeah, it's called an inflate, but it's kind of like a buffer or like a collision distance almost. So this is going to be 0.5. So when this thing, hopefully when these things fall, it's not going to touch the body. It's not going to be coplanar with the body. Basically, this is creating that resistance or that gap in a way. I'm just going to recalculate and run simulation as it is without tweaking anything. I mean, I think by default this is a 3 and this is 100. Fateboard, it should be 6. I think everything is by default. Okay, inflate should be at 1, but I changed it to 0.5. The rest should be default. So let's click on run simulation, and that's what we get, right? So you start getting the deformation and all of that, which is great, but this doesn't look good. So I'm going to undo that, and the next step will be to pin, in a way, the areas that we don't want to simulate. So that's super easy using the masking brush. Like that. I'm going to invert that, blur it, just blur it a little bit more, and then make sure that these initial points are well masked. Okay, same thing, let's do the simulation, but now we have a mask protecting those points, so they're just gonna fall like this. All right, cool. So obviously, again, that's not what we want, and that's why I wanted to take you through that process. Because yeah, it's like, I think I've mentioned this before in the past, working with dynamics in ZBrush is awesome, but it's not like, it's like the series measure, right? If you click series measure, it might give you something really cool, like a clean topology, but it's not perfect, right? So you need to do certain things and tweak a few settings in order to get it to where you want it. So the same thing with the dynamics. So obviously this is not what I want. I want to maintain, it's stretching a little bit too much, and I want to maintain more of that rigidness, if we call it like that, or stiffness of these pieces. So let's undo that. We can go ahead and enable firmness to 5. Let's try 5 and do another one. Right, just by changing that stiffness, you see that now there's not that much of a stretchiness. I'm still, some things are getting stretched anyway, but it's not as much, right? So the other way that you can tweak that is with the iterations, or control that is with the iterations. The iterations, or the simulation iterations, this first slider here, what it's going to tell ZBrush is basically going to give more quality to the simulation in a way. You're telling ZBrush that consider more of these settings before the gravity. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but if you think about it in layers, I don't know if this is going to be helpful at all, but yeah, you have sort of like layers of simulation layers, right? And this could be whatever. Like, I'm not trying to point out like this is layer for gravity and this is something for something else. Just imagine this in a more abstract way. These are layers for simulation. The more iterations that you add, the more influence those layers are going to have. In other words, if you, I don't know, I guess we'll have to set it as a, let's say that this firmness 5 belongs to this layer. And it's not how it works. I'm just trying to create a different way to explain it. But let's assume that this is layer 1, and gravity is this layer, for example. Let's just keep it simple. I'm just gonna do these two as an example, right? It's not necessarily how it works. I just want to make that clear. But I think for me, it's an easy way to understand how these things work and how you can control it. So firmness, let's say that this is the layer and gravity is this layer. So right now the gravity layer has a lot more influence, and let's assume the influence of the simulation is like that, right? So now gravity has a lot more influence, and instead of changing the firmness, which is pretty close to the maximum, which is 6, you take the iterations and then you push that up. So when ZBrush simulates this, right, is looking at, okay, the gravity, there's 10, a value of 10 in the gravity, so it's pretty strong. I'm going to push things at let's say, a value of 10, right? Actually, let's do it with yellow. I'm going to push things with a value of 10 down, right? And as I do that, I'm just thinking as ZBrush, so I'm thinking as if ZBrush was talking to itself. As I push things down at a value of 10, right, I'm also simulating that firmness and the rest of the things, right? Which is happening at the same time, let's say, in this way. But I think this is getting confusing, but anyway, I'm gonna try to finish it. This explanation. Basically, once you start running that simulation, the gravity, because it has more influence, is gonna react first. So no matter what number you have in here, if the gravity is pretty strong, it's gonna keep pulling things down, right? So when you increase the iterations, the simulation iteration, you're basically giving more chance to the simulation to catch up. So ZBrush is going to simulate that firmness and simulate that strength and all of that before the gravity gets a chance to pull it down in a way. So I think this is one of the weirdest explanations, but let's just do in practice, so hopefully that makes more sense. So this is the simulation. You still get a bit of a stretchiness happening, right? Also, by the way, let me just do it again. You see a little bit of self collision in here, although I have do I have it enabled? Oh no, 0. So let's just undo that and let's enable self collision of 1. That should fix things a little bit. It is actually fixing it. It's just that these areas, remember, we have a thickness which is just a preview, so we can increase that a bit more, right? So that self collision does help. So what I was talking, that weird explanation from before, is just adding iterations. So if I reduce the firmness to, let's say, 3, because I want something flappy, not something really strong, and I run the simulation, this is when we are stretching things out, right? So this is what I was trying to explain before. Now the influence of the gravity is a lot more. So although ZBrush is trying to simulate that firmness of 3, for example, right? The influence of the gravity is way too strong. So this simulation doesn't have enough chance to catch up with the gravity, if that makes sense. So what I can do, instead of changing the firmness, because that's the firmness that I want. I don't wanna, I wanna make something softer, but at the same time I wanna simulate it without stretching. Instead of changing the firmness, what you change is the iteration. That's basically it. So that way, when you change this number, you are exaggerating the amount of iterations that happen between 0 or before ZBrush has enough chance to catch up with the gravity. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So I'm going to leave this firmness of 3, which is what I just got. And in fact, let's set this up like that. Can you see this there? Yeah. So I'm going to do a snapshot, undo that. And again, instead of changing the firmness, I'm just going to increase the simulations quite a bit. So again, now ZBrush is going to have more resolution in a way, or more chances to maintain these settings before the gravity pulls it. There we go. So it's still like this is still a bit of stretchiness, and that also has to do with the firmness. But you see, it's not the same thing, right? So that's what the firmness, the iterations do. Let's exaggerate a bit more. It's gonna take a bit longer. Oh, not too bad. Right. So this one is literally, it's almost the same size. So the volume of the shapes haven't changed. I'm just gonna check something. I think I kind of like this as a, yeah, I kind of like this as a thing. Let's keep running the simulation. Oh, by the way, if you run a simulation, you stop it and then you run it again, you are doubling up on the simulation. So now I'm actually stretching things, and if I do it again, it will keep stretching. So the more that I run the simulation, the longer it's going to stretch. Which in this case is not bad. I think it's kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe just the ones at the back. And having kind of like a tie. We'll see. We'll leave this one there. Let's take the other one. And I'll show you another way to do it. So I might combine the two. That's kind of cool. Yep, this one. I'm going to duplicate it just in case. Drop it into the originals. And I'm going to take that one. And there is other options, obviously, instead of running the simulation. Or you can do, you can do multiple times. I just want to show you something else, obviously. I'm going to go ahead and mask these initial points, right? So that I can protect them. And then what I'll do is I'm going to take the move hook brush, or the cloth hook. And I'm going to make sure I have AccuCurve. This one is kind of like based, I think this one is based on a snake hook brush. Yeah, so might not, it does affect the, what's the name? The AccuCurve is the one that gives you that pointy effect. So it might, it gives you the same idea, the same effect. So I can take that point and do this, which is pretty cool. So it's making this thing behave like cloth. If I don't have the AccuCurve, it's still gonna behave very similar, but you see that as I pull this down, that whole region is not very pointy. I basically will have to push this like that and then do this to get the same effect. So that's why I have the AccuCurve enabled. So let's do that. And it's kind of like a cool way to sculpt as well. In this case, it's unwrapping this pumpkin. And this is one of the things that I really love about the update of the dynamics. Is not just about simulating stuff. You can just sculpt with this simulation, which I think is crazy, but that's what the Pixologic guys do. Crazy stuff. There we go. All right, so I think this might be a little bit too big for this guy. So let's go ahead and clear that mask. Reposition this whole thing. And we can scale this down. And even just rotate it maybe a little bit. And maybe take the other piece. Clear the mask as well. We had a mask there. Oh, this is another cool thing. So because we have already simulated this thing, most of these pieces are already close to the body, or pretty close anyway. So we can either do the hook brush and just push this down, and you see it sort of maintains, you know, like if I push this along the arm, it will try to flow along the arm, which is super cool. But we can also use the transpose cloth, right? And this one is just like the normal transpose master or the gizmo, but it will respect the movement. So I can do this, and you see it's maintained. So again, just want to push this thing down a bit. Maybe like that. And obviously I can take the cloth hook, push these things. Destroying this a little bit, but I don't really mind, just because I don't think I'm going to keep those anyway. Just to test, I'm going to hide. I'm going to auto group. Yep, and I'm going to hide these ones. I don't know. I think they kind of work. It's kind of like a weird bow tie thing. Maybe what they need is to be smaller. All right, and I'm gonna simulate just this bit. Oops, forgot to anchor it somewhere. There we go, and simulate. Cool. So now I'm using just the normal move brush to fit these things in place. Maybe without the head, I'm just, there we go. Maybe with the move topological will be easier, so that we can maintain, you know, close that gap rather than maintain it. And same thing with this. So now that I have simulated this, is just normal sculpting really, or tweaking the shapes really. But yeah, I think that kind of works. I'm gonna move the head down. So because I have everything that belongs to the head in a folder, I can just go ahead and use the transpose set, push that down, maybe rotate it slightly. And I think we won't have time to do anything else, but let me just tweak this a bit so that there's no intersection. Okay, I think that was it. Cool. All right. Well, it's not too bad. I mean, it's getting there. I kind of like these things as a kind of like a cape or something. We'll see how we go. Let's see the chat, and we have about 10 minutes roughly. So I'm just gonna do again another working poly paint to bring this body closer to the rest of the character, and and we'll wrap it up today. Am I getting the PlayStation 5? Probably not. I mean, I would like to, but probably not. I honestly don't really have time to play. I have my PlayStation 4 in a box. I haven't even, since I moved places, I haven't even unpacked it. Really don't have time these days. So the little extra time that I have is just for my, working on the projects that I like, or just spending time with my partner, or doing something instead with my friends. Using Surface Pro at the moment. Want an upgrade? You're using the Surface Pro. What's the Surface Pro? Canvas 22. Yeah, those are pretty cool tablets. Will the mushroom character include close simulation lesson? So the character itself is just the demo, right? And obviously that's the one that will follow in the course, but it's covering the entire system of ZBrush. So the new simulation stuff is obviously like something outside of what I was doing for the course, but it comes as an add-on in a way. But it's not gonna prevent you from like knowing ZBrush, if you know what I mean. So it's like all the stuff that I teach in the course, when you finish it, you'll have all the tools you need to do anything. And one of the focus of the course is giving you the concepts and the tools so that you can figure things out on your own. So they're very specific things. So I don't go like slider by slider showing all of those things, because it's pretty boring. But rather the concepts of how things work in a specific area, so that you like knowing those things, then you can, when you hit a roadblock, or when you hit something that you don't know how to figure out, or previously you didn't know how to figure out, now you know at least, okay, if I go down this path, that's how I can do this. That's the difference. That's the key point really of the course. Is not just teaching ZBrush and learning how to use it, but learning how, it's kind of like problem solving from a point of knowing how to solve things from the basic, not basic, but yeah, the core concepts. So once you know that, you can do the dynamics very easily. That's what I mean, basically. But yeah, there will be some update. Yeah, I tend to sort of like overcomplicate some answers as well. But yeah. What's the best way to get critique reviews for your work in ZBrush? I just ask for it, I guess. You can just go to the ZBrush Central and put it there and ask for critique. Just post it in there and say, hey, I'm looking for honest critiques. If you can just give me something. And that's what I used to do way back in the day, and that's how it helped me as well. Am I going to continue this character next stream? Yeah, probably. I think I can add a couple more things. What's the difference between ZBrush Core and ZBrush 2020? Big difference. So ZBrush Core is the younger version, or the younger brother of ZBrush 2020 or 2021. The ZBrush 2020 or 2021 is the full version of ZBrush that allows you to do dynamics and all of those things. ZBrush Core actually got updated recently, and I think you have Sculptris Pro in there. And if I'm not mistaken, there's also ZRemesher now for ZBrush Core 2021, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it just got a massive, great update. But anyway, yeah, it's different. If you're just starting with ZBrush Core is probably one of the greatest, options that you have, and then you can upgrade to ZBrush. But it's just different. You won't have all these tools that you have in ZBrush 2020, the full version in ZBrush Core. Cool. All right, so we have 3 minutes. I've been talking for too long, so I'm gonna start by switching the material. Let's do a quick save. Haven't done one for a while, and let's go ahead and paint these just with some colors as a point of reference. So let's see. I think we're gonna go for these green earthy tones for the most part. So let's go ahead and fill all of those. And then we can start varying some like dark colors maybe here for the top. And remember, we're using dynamic subdivision for this one. So what you see, that the subdivision that you see is not the real geometry or the real amount of vertex that you have to paint. So that's why it's pretty smooth. So maybe the hands could be more of a yellow tone. Let's see. Maybe a yellow tone with some hints of orange, as if they were more part of the, an evolved piece of pumpkin. Actually, there's something that I haven't tried, but I'm pretty sure it would work. Oh, that's pretty cool. So usually the way that you pick colors in ZBrush is you click and drag, right? So you can move throughout the different colors and do a color picker, right? But I just had this reference in here as an image, right? Ultimately, this is an image being projected in this corner. So when you click and drag and try to select a image color from here as a color palette, you can't. But if you hold the Alt key while you do that, that's how you pick colors in Spotlight. So I thought maybe try that, and it works. So that's great. So yeah, just you can have a palette in there, which is cool. So you can hold the Alt key and just click and drag. Yeah, so let's do a bit more of this. I think that color might be an interesting one for this. Let's do some variation for the body in tones, just to try to block in the palette a bit more. Yeah, I think that works. Maybe these pieces are kind of like more dead in a way. So maybe the green is too bright. Let's go for a darker brown maybe. Yeah, I think a dry color for this might be much better. And for this one, not as much. These ones are still alive, but a tiny bit would help. Oops. Cool. And these funny shoes. Maybe a bright green. Again, all of these might change, and of course we haven't done. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do retopology or anything, but it's I think it works. Maybe the shoes too bright. Yeah, I think something darker might work a little bit better. I'm just gonna fade it a bit towards the top. All right, I think it's getting there. Cool. All right. I agree. Glowing eyes. Let's have a look. Glowing eyes. Yeah. So the glowing eyes, and that might be something that I do later, something that I will leave for the render, so it's not affecting the sculpting bit. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, guys. As a quick reminder, if you're part of the email list, you will get a couple of emails just reminding you. I would want to make sure that if you want to join, or that you don't miss this chance to join, because it's the last time that the price is gonna remain as it has been for the past year, before it goes up. So the Extra Mile course is opening next week. And if you're interested in the Ultimate ZBrush Guide, which is the other course that I've been working on, but I haven't actually, released that one yet, that might come later in November. So if you can just hold on, like if you are way newer to ZBrush, you can wait for that one. The Extra Mile would be more for more advanced users, or someone that has a bit more experience already. Even though I cover some of the basics as well. Enrollment has 2 L's, probably in America. In Australia, it's like different ways of spelling it. Alrighty, so I'm gonna leave it here, guys. I hope that this has been useful. I'm gonna do a quick render of this and just publish it on social media, just to keep track of what we've been doing. And next time we'll continue, maybe add a few more things that make this guy interesting. What's the next week? 27. Yeah, so pretty close to Halloween anyway, so we can just finish this for the Halloween date. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, guys. Again, if you're not familiar with the Extra Mile, you can go ahead and check that out from the website. Let me bring that here. So this is the course that I was talking about. I'll put that in the chat as well, just to wrap up. So this is the waiting list. So you can go here and check out the entire course, and but obviously right now it is closed. You can go all the way down to the bottom and subscribe to the email list. You will get all the tips and tricks and everything that I share on a weekly basis as well. But just so you know, when it is released, you'll get an invitation straight to your email box. I just want to show you, well, aside from some of the awesome work that the students have been doing, actually I've been working on that thing. Let me just show you. Yeah. So this is one an image that I was working on to update that website that I just shared. But look at the range and the quality of the students. So this is what makes me like really excited and happy to share stuff, because the students have been just like creating amazing things, and I focus more on the workflows really, so they can just do whatever they want. So there is creature stuff, character stylized, fantasy stuff, creatures like dinosaurs, dragons, more cartoonish style, hard surface modeling thing, more realistic stuff. So there's a whole bunch of different things that the students are doing. So it's super exciting. Anyway, so I want to show you briefly. So this is the character that I updated, the one that I have in this little graphic here. So now, apart from the core modules, this is an update that I did last year on hard surface. So it's just focusing on workflows for hard surface modeling with this character. And now I have added a new character to the family, basically. And this one is focusing on alternative softwares for rendering. So when you get to the rendering modules in the course, you can use the ones that are already in the core, like in the core modules, like our Marmoset or Keyshot. But now I have added Blender Eve, Blender Cycles, Maverick Render, and Adobe Dimension to basically cover that, just giving you options basically. And that's the whole point of the course. Anyway, check this out. I've just updated the website. That's what I was doing. Cool. I'll leave it here, guys, and I'll see you next time.